Hey, dance teachers, dancers, and lovers of all things dance. Miss Shauna here today to chat a little bit about age appropriate choreography. All right, my friends, we are back full into the new year, and that means we are likely full force into choreography. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, before we do, I apologize if there's any weird glares. It is super sunshiny today, and I'm not complaining about that, but it does make for weird lighting. So if there's any bright bursts of light, well, let's just enjoy the sunshine a little bit as we dive into today's topic. I also hope to keep today kind of short and sweet because my notifications keep popping off saying that I have not yet practiced my Duolingo today, and I want to keep my streak going. So let's try to stay on topic. I have got my handy dandy notes, my handy dandy cup of tea, and I am ready to chat about this because this is actually something I am kind of passionate about. The idea of age appropriateness in dance. And I think there's a lot of sports activities, anything like that we could discuss this with. Lord Almighty, we could probably just talk about it with the world and social media and all the things that youth and children are exposed to. Obviously here we chat about it and how it connects to the dance world. And this is something that I hear about a lot, I get asked about a lot, I talk about it a lot, and it is how do we keep it age appropriate? So I think first and foremost, does it matter? Does it really matter? Does it matter to you? If you're a choreographer, if you're a dancer, if you're a dance parent, does keeping dance and choreography and training and all those things, does keeping it age appropriate actually matter to you? Do you care? Um, to me, it does. I think it matters. I think it's important because we are in this world just in general, not even just the dance world, the world, period, exclamation mark, the world where things are instant. We've got these crazy world issues that I remember being a kid and world issues were there, but I feel like everything is just amplified for youth these days. And social media, there is so much happening on there, influencers and trends you're supposed to follow, but who decides that those trends are even good? I don't know. And even things like what 10-year-old needs retinol for their skin? They don't, they're blessed with youth, right? So there's all of these things that are already popping up that are expecting or making kids expect themselves to be overly mature at an age they don't need to be mature yet, or to be developing themselves or presenting themselves either more maturely, overly sexualized, whatever it is, at an age that just let them be kids, right? So I think, does dance need to be overly mature? No, I don't. I really don't. I think that we as dance educators and dance parents, this reflects on you too. Uphold this, right? Uphold your studios, your studio directors, your teachers. Uphold them to these same values if they align with you. But I think that it's up to us to be able to help our dancers grow and mature naturally, right? Give them concepts, give them training, things that align age appropriately. So what do I mean by that? I was recently teaching a workshop that we were talking about kind of preparing dancers, and I swear no matter what the workshop topic is, things always deviate. People have questions. This was a teacher training workshop and there's always questions, and it ended up circling over touching base on a workshop we had done previously about choreography and building storytelling and concepts through our dance performance, and it tied in regardless, but it went back to the how do you do lyrical for a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old? Because usually lyrical storytelling and contemporary storytelling tends to be deep and tends to be concepts that really a 10-year-old hasn't experienced yet. Should you force that 10-year-old to learn from your stories? Should you be able to say, hey, 10-year-old dancer, you're going to be dancing about heartbreak. It's when have you been heartbroken? And they may not have an experience yet where that's existed, right? And you're going, well, when I was 18, and you're trying to get them to relive your experience that they're not emotionally ready to experience. Maybe they're not physically ready to dance it, because as you're dancing stuff like heartbreak, there is an emotional, a physical and emotional connection between that. And there's not a bridge between that gap yet, right? So how do you choreograph lyrical for 10-year-olds? And it's like we kind of talked about that. What are concepts that are age appropriate when you're 10 or when you're 12 or when you're 14? Some of this storytelling that we do as performers, we need to live it first, right? If you're trying to get your dancers to dance about the sadness of divorce and they've never experienced divorce, they don't know anybody who's got divorced parents, the idea of divorce is like, they don't get it. How are they going to really channel that? You either have to find a really great way to connect it to something they can relate to, or you have to find something that's appropriate for them, age or not. When you tie in age appropriateness, though, it is the storytelling, it is the movements themselves, right? And some of the things that I find as an adjudicator that really get me is like when you have a dancer come out and their dance, we'll go with jazz, we'll just call it jazz today because I love me some jazz, but it's a super sassy jazz. And they've got their cropped two-piece costume on and everything is just extra. And when I say extra, it's like, you know what, I don't need to see that many jazz body rolls to try to accent how sassy you are. You know what's going to show me you're sassy? Your energy, your facials, all of those things. It doesn't always need to be an extra sassy, over sexualized dance movement, right? Do you see what I'm trying to allude to here without getting, too critical of the dance world? Because sometimes there is a time and a place, and I'm not trying to quash that. I'm just trying to say, like, in general, as an adjudicator, when I watch, an 8-year-old doing an overly mature dance for her, more than anything, I just want to say, hey, tone it down. It is my job to say or give feedback on what they present me, not to say this is wrong, you shouldn't do that. With that said, judges can reserve the right to say this is inappropriate, this is highly inappropriate, and they'll bring that to the competition director. So it is food for thought, right? But I digress. But it does hurt my soul when I go up onto like the microphone to speak, and it's just like I feel bad for the dancer because I know that there are kind of 3 elements that go into what you're creating for your dancers, and a lot of those things adults are in control of, right? Us as adults, as dance educators, as parents, we are the grown-ups in the room who are responsible for these things. And they are training methods, they are dance concepts and storylines, and they are the moves that are going in to your child's dance. So training methods, I mean, here's the thing. This is where sometimes we talk about age appropriateness and keeping things appropriate, and we just think it's like, a 7-year-old shouldn't be twerking in a 2-piece to like, inappropriate lyrics, right? Okay, yeah, absolutely. But it goes a little bit deeper than that. Sometimes it's training methods, right? Does a child really need to be training at a super advanced 20-year-old level, right? When they're 8, should they be training like a 20-year-old? Is that going to create longevity? Is that going to instill a lifelong love in dance? Probably not. And here's the thing. Yes, there are 8-year-old phenoms. They exist and we see them on social media like all the time, but they're the anomaly. The normal successful dancer, starts in baby ballet or their baby combo class. And then maybe they're like, I want to take ballet. And then they grow into adding jazz. And then they add some lyrical, and they add some tap or some hip hop, and they build their repertoire, and they let their training grow with them as their body grows, as their mind grows, as their interests grow, as their life experience grows. That's how their training goes with them. It's one thing, and I get it. I have some dancers where I'm like, I want you to take everything. You are phenomenal. I want you to take everything. But I also respect the parent who goes, you know what? I need my child to move at their own pace. And I'm like, hey, yeah, I get you. I got you. And I've had dancers where I'm like, this kid is ready for a solo. And I offer the solo to the child. And the parent says, we talked about it. And she wants one more year to just get some training under her belt till she builds some confidence. I'm like, hey, yeah, let's train, let's grow together. So that is one thing. You're training, keeping it age appropriate, keeping it with their physical and mental and emotional development. That's step 1. Step 2 is your dance concepts and your storylines. I'm doing a dance this year, and in my mind, okay, bearing in mind, like the age average, I think is 13 of this dance. But in my mind, I'm like, I want to say to my dancers, think about like think about those like 1920s parties wearing flappers dresses and like champagne is popping off. And I'm like, wait, at age 13, you don't understand when I say champagne is popping off. Like, that's like, you haven't experienced that. And it's like, even if you're like, you're trying to get the attention of the man across the room, and it's like, again, you're 13, that's probably not like on your radar the way that I'm thinking of it in my mind. So, how do I get this like 1920s, like little party? It's not to Little Party Never Killed Nobody, by the way, but like very Great Gatsby inspired vibe to it. Like, how do you explain that to kids who've never experienced it? You either have to take your vision and turn it into something that they will understand, or you table that, right? The same thing. You got a 10-year-old and you're like, I want you to, and I think I talked about this before when I mentioned that my younger lyrical class, they wanted to do a dance about deep dark death, and none of them actually knew what that meant. Like, they couldn't, they have zero emotional connection to what that means. So how would they even begin to dance it, right? So keeping those concepts and those storylines age appropriate. And sometimes it's also just, is it enough? Like, is it going to be something that benefits the dancer dancing it, or will it not? I don't want to say will it hinder them or harm them, because I think that that's like inaccurate. I don't think, dancing a concept that's too mature is necessarily going to harm you like a ton. It's not going to physically harm you, right? But for example, I had done a dance, and I think I may have talked about this in a previous episode, but I would have loved a ton of dancers to be in it based on their skill level. But the concept of the dance, it was deep, it was vulnerable. We needed to be able to speak in that room openly about things like, personally just wanting to disappear, or like just feeling like complete despair and loss and hopelessness. And we needed to tie it into our personal experiences. And I needed to be able to openly share my experience for what motivated that dance. The 10-year-olds in the room were not emotionally developed enough to be able to be there properly. And I didn't need them at that time in their life. And like, these kids are way older now, and I've since talked to them about it, and they were like, yeah, we couldn't have been in that dance. But it was to have them see me in such a vulnerable place as their leader, as their choreographer, as this person that they put on this pedestal. Like, Miss Shauna knew everything at that point. And I'm not saying I do, that's not necessarily like an accurate interpretation, but that's like how the 10-year-old sees it, right? And it was just not a place that would be safe for them to properly grow. So we have to think about those concepts and those storylines. And then obviously we want the moves to be appropriate. And I think this is the one that when we think about age appropriate choreography, this is the one that we tie into most. And I think this is the one where I always kind of say to myself as a choreographer, if I know these children's dance parents, and I mean, I pride myself on getting to know my students' parents well enough, right? But if I've choreographed something and I go, your dad is not going to like this, your dad's going to be uncomfortable, that is a red flag for me, right? If I go, your mom will probably be able to talk your dad down, but this is going to be uncomfortable, that's probably a red flag. Because I think I've talked about this too in another episode, I have been in the audience where I've had dance dads next to me, and there's 12-year-olds doing very mature movements as part of their dance on stage, and they like literally look away. And I feel that sometimes as an adjudicator, but I don't get to move my vision, right? My eye line has to stay on you, and I'm like it's, what do the kids call it? Cringy. It's cringy sometimes when I'm just like, you know what? This dance would have been fine without that. You did not need that move. It was not appropriate for an 8-year-old to do that, or a 10-year-old to do that, or a 12-year-old to do that. They're just, give them time to be 8, 10, 12. Let modesty speaks volumes sometimes. And sometimes like the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. I think that's the last S. I don't know, that's dumb. But keeping it simple, is sometimes okay, right? Don't overthink it. You don't have to necessarily step into this overly mature, overly sexualized, inappropriate role at age 10. Your character development and your storytelling can be age appropriate. And when you're performing, if you are a good performer, if you bring to the stage great energy, if you as a choreographer teach them, how to perform with fun and excitement in their bodies and in their facials, then you don't need inappropriate choreography. And that's why I think that we need to give this a little bit of thought. Is there a time and a place? Maybe. Maybe there's a time and a place. Maybe you've got that 8-year-old phenom who can dance with the 14-year-olds. And then, yeah, they maybe do need to be exposed to some more mature concepts or movements. Okay, fair. But to force our little minis to get on stage in these tiny 2-piece costumes, doing these tiny movements that they don't necessarily understand, they're doing what they're told, right? We're the grown-ups in the room telling them to do things. We have the control as choreographers, as dance directors, as leaders in the dance community to say, hey, listen, let's let kids, that was a tongue twister. Did you get that? Let's let kids be kids, and let's have their dance training, their dance storytelling, their dance performance grow with them and help them evolve and empower themselves. We don't need to get them there too quick. The rest of the world's doing that for them. Let's take time to make dance a nice safe space where they can create and they can learn about themselves, and they don't have to feel the pressure that they may feel when they leave dance and head onto social media and think that they have to do X and Y and Z and be X and Y and Z. And, every 10-year-old has their skincare tutorial. Like, we don't need that, right? Let's give them time to grow organically as dancers and performers and as leaders. I was going to take a sip of this and I just went on a tangent. But as their leaders, give them a safe place to be, right? And that's why I think that age appropriateness matters. Now, with that said, if you disagree, I'd love to hear your side of things. Like I've said, as an adjudicator, there's times where I'm like, right? I would love to pick this all apart. How have we got to a place of over-sexualization of minors on a dance stage? How have we come to a place of mature concepts needing to be the norm for 10-year-old lyrical? Why can't 10-year-old lyrical be about love and friendship and, keeping it light and simple? Because there's happy lyrical and there's dark lyrical. 10-year-old doesn't necessarily need to lead right into dark lyrical, right? All of those things. Why did we get to this place, and how do we maybe start to undo it to open the dance world up to new concepts and new values or enhanced values? And how do we help our dancers along the way to know that they don't need to, at age 10, dance like a 20-year-old to be able to be good, right? How do we help them see the value in what they're doing at their age, and that it is perfectly normal and appropriate what they're doing? I think at the end of the day, the conversation on appropriate choreography, age appropriateness, appropriate training, all of those things, all the appropriate words, that lies in the hands of us grown-ups. And we have the ability to take it in a really positive or a really negative direction. And at the end of the day, I would like to take it in the positive. So that's my food for thought today. That's my thoughts on appropriateness, keeping it appropriate in training methods and in concepts and in moves. And obviously in costuming, but we talked about that in a previous episode. But yeah, costuming as well. If you disagree with me, that is okay. Let's have a conversation. Let's see how we can make dance the best place possible for our young next generation of dancers who are growing up and going to be hopefully the next generation of dance educators if we do our jobs right. So that's all I've got for you today. Until next time, keep on dancing, keep on shining, and I will see you soon.